The girls of Glow are back for season 3. And while it looks from all the scenes that they're headed to Vegas, but what exactly happened in season 2? So let's go through it really quick. In episode 1, the girls are excited to be back, and Ruth is already annoying the ever-loving hell out of Sam. Sam's a little stressed out because he has to turn this empty warehouse into a, quote, hotel for the show, and he doesn't really feel like dealing with Ruth's antics. Sam and Bash ended up handing out the girls their contracts, and the problem with their contracts is, contract sucks. Basically, the TV company wants to own them. Own their rights, their likeness, all that crap. But Debbie, the girl who plays Liberty Bell, is a TV vet, and she knows this contract sucks, so she's going to try to do something about it. The rest of the girls are kind of okay with being taken advantage of because they're on TV. And one of the girls who's completely okay with this new contract is a new character named Yolanda, who will be the new junk chain. She comes in and completely takes the other girls by surprise because they weren't expecting a brand new character that took over for Cherry. So after they kind of disperse, Ruth goes up to Sam and says, hey, can you kind of clear up the language in this contract because it's not all that clear. And by the way, what's up with the new junk chain? And Sam, already being stressed out, just kind of pushed her to the side and says, just get the girls to sign it. And if you want to help out, go make the girls feel good. Go make the girls feel better about this whole situation, but make sure they sign the contract. So when Ruth walks out into the parking lot, she notices that the other girls are being downright mean to Yolanda. And she says, hey, it's not her fault that Sam hired her for this job. And then she has the idea of filming a cool open to the show. Well, there's still some animosity between Debbie and her, and Debbie's like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm going to go to the mall. To which Ruth replied, yeah, we love the mall. So the girls all head out to the mall along with a cameraman named Russell to film a brand new open to Glow. So all the girls, along with Russell, are filming this new open, and it's actually a pretty funny scene. At one point, a security guard comes up to them and says, hey, are you filming in here? And she says, yeah, but if you're looking for my permit, and the security guard cuts her off and says, oh, I'm an actor, and hands her his headshot. So Ruth ends up putting him in the opening of the show. All the girls seem pretty excited about the open, and it apparently looks pretty good. And Russell, the cameraman, tells Ruth, hey, you have a really good eye, but I don't think he's after her eye. I think he's after the whole damn thing. In fact, at the very end of the day, he says, hey, let's come over to my place and we can cut it up together. And Debbie sees this happening and says, hey, Ruth, do you need a ride? So she gives Ruth the ride, and while she's in the car, she says, hey, by the way, you're welcome for saving you. During this exchange, Ruth basically asks her if it's okay that Ruth start dating again. It's a really weird scene, but there's still a contentious relationship where Ruth wants to be friends with Debbie, and Debbie's still pissed because Ruth had sex with her husband. She's kind of weird like that. While in the car, Debbie lets Ruth know, by the way, I'm getting a divorce, which might be added fuel to the fire of why Debbie still does not really want to be friends with Ruth. But not all is bad for Debbie, because she's got a meeting with the head of the studio. She brings along Mark, her soon-to-be ex-husband, because he's a manager, and they're going to talk about the contract for Liberty Bell. Now, while this meeting is going on where Debbie's telling the studio head, hey, I'm the star of the show, I deserve more money, Sam has just gotten home from a long day, and Justine, his daughter, is making shirts for Billy's band, Shit Pope. Seriously, like that's actually their name. Billy, you'll remember from season 1, was the pizza boy, and Sam is still having problems adjusting to being a father. Sam ends up kind of yelling at her, asking her when she was going to leave, and Justine kind of gets upset about this because all she wants is a father. Now, the next day, in front of the studio head, Bash, and Sam, Ruth, along with all the rest of the girls from Glow, unveil the thing that they shot. The studio head absolutely loves it, and Bash loves it too, but Sam hates it. He stands in front of the girls and says, am I the fucking director? I can't tell because I didn't shoot this, and I'm not going to put my name on it because I didn't shoot it. And that's when Reggie, the girl who plays the Viking wrestler, stands up for Ruth and says, well, you didn't have a problem putting your name on the first episode, and we all know Ruth was the one who actually filmed it. And Sam takes this really well and just says, yeah, you're fired. Later on, Ruth goes up to Sam's office and says, you didn't have to fire Reggie. If anybody, you should fire me. To which Sam goes, do you really want me to fire you? Is that what you really want? And while they're having this conversation, in walks Liberty Bell, and she hands Sam her new contract, which has a lot more pages. And while Sam's glancing it over, he says, whoa, you want to be a producer? And Debbie says, no, I am a producer, and closes the door and makes sure Ruth's out of the room. All right, on to episode 2, where the girls are going through a taping and it's not going well. The two girls who play the old ladies are just having a boring match, and it's literally putting patrons to sleep. Sheila, the one who plays the she-wolf devilish wrestler, is kind of refusing to just end the match, and it's making things a lot worse. So the next day, Sam and Bash get all the girls together and say, look, we're not doing this 6 matches anymore. So you guys are to come up with ideas, you're going to pitch us those ideas for the matches, and we're going to pick the 3 best, and those are going to be the ones that are going to be on TV. This way you don't have audience members just falling asleep, you're putting the best product out there. He's matching up all the girls, and he just so happens to forget to match up Ruth. when she asks, hey, what about me? He sticks her with the new junk chain who literally has never wrestled before. At the end of this, Debbie goes up to Sam and Bash and says, hey, next time you guys have a production meeting, why don't you invite me because now I'm a producer. Oh, and by the way, you're coming to my house tonight. I'm making fondue and we're meeting about the show. Unfortunately for Debbie, the guys have absolutely zero interest of actually going to her house for delicious fondue. Later that night, Debbie's got a whole mess of fondue and nobody to eat it with. Because Bash and Sam didn't show up. But who did show up? Tammy, the welfare queen. They end up talking about how they're going to progress the storyline between welfare queen and Liberty Bell, but they also talk about life and being a mom. And as Tammy's leaving, she starts eating candy and says, yeah, this is how I stay up when I'm doing long drives because it's just easier than doing drugs. That night, Justine goes to the Shit Pope show that she was making t-shirts for, and she ends up getting into a fight and gets bloodied up. As she's trying to leave Sam's house, Sam sees her and goes, where are you going? You can't leave like that. You're all bloodied up. And Justine's basically like, look, you told me you don't want me to be here. I'm not going to be here. Sam tries to make amends and says, hey, I do want you here because he doesn't want her just running out, going to God knows where. So there's your Sam and Justine update for the episode. Let's move on to the actual wrestling part. All the girls now need to come up with ideas for their matches. And Rhonda, the girl who plays Beirut, has a great idea on a way to get rid of this Beirut character that she hates so much. She's going to blow herself up like a suicide bomber, and from the ashes rises this new character, the Phoenix. Unfortunately for Rhonda, the girls who play the two old ladies hear this. They kind of steal the idea. So all the girls are pitching their ideas to Bash and Sam. And Debbie, the first one to go, are Melanie, who played Melrose, and the two old women. And they steal Beirut's idea. During the match, Melrose pulls out a can of hairspray, sprays it with them, and they transform from old women into their new characters, Ozone and Nuke. The storyline is that the hairspray was from 3 Mile Island. It's radioactive. You get the idea. But when they come off from the match, Beirut's like, yo, you stole my idea. And they go, yeah, sorry, we just couldn't be old women anymore. But hey, it's your idea, so I'm sure yours will be better. And they know full well that because they went first, their idea is going to get picked. Now, while it looks like Melrose, Nuke, and Ozone are set for the show, Ruth is having trouble because what the hell does she do with a girl who doesn't know how to wrestle? So while she's talking to Yolanda, this guy pulls up in his car blasting the song, and Yolanda yells, yo, turn it up, and starts breakdancing. And that's when Ruth gets the idea, hey, this is how we get on the show. Can you teach me this? Yolanda's like, yeah, I absolutely can teach you this. So they're going to try to get on the show with this breakdancing gimmick. And honestly, it's not going to be too hard. Because the next match is between Sheila and Britannica, and it's just a technical match. It's not that good. After that, it's Machu Picchu versus Beirut, and they go through Beirut's idea. The problem is they already saw it, and they say as much. Hey, it's great, but we already have one transformation. We're not going to do two. And then finally it follows up with Zoya and Junk Chain breakdancing. After this, Sam, Bash, and Debbie go off and talk about the matches, and they all love the breakdancing. Everybody except for Sam, of course. Bash brings up the point that, hey, this is kind of a halftime show, and you said you want to mix it up and keep people engaged. This could be that. And even Debbie pays Ruth a compliment and says, look, it was good. We should include it. So even though Sam didn't want it, Junk Chain and Zoya breakdancing is good to make the episode. As they're about to leave, Debbie gives Sam nerds and says, hey, by the way, this is how we're going to keep the audience members awake. Now, while all of that seems like a great plan, they do get some bad news in episode 3. They meet with Glenn, one of the studio execs, who lets them know that their show is being boycotted by a women's group who thinks Glow is too sexist. They're planning on not just boycotting Glow, but the sponsor Patio Town, and obviously you can't have that. So they come up with the idea to run a PSA for teen pregnancy. Pretty straightforward. Don't have sex. You won't have a baby. Everyone goes home happy. Now, Bash loves it, and Debbie loves it, but Sam, of course, hates it. So he looks at Debbie and says, look, you're a producer now. Go do it. And with the help of Ruth, that's when they come up with the idea of doing an abstinence PSA. They get Sheila to type it all up, and everything looks great. But while Glow seems to be on the come-up, Cherry, the old junk chain, is not doing so hot. She's landed a role as one of the leads on a network show, but the problem is she keeps forgetting her lines. And even in the times when she remembers her lines, she's a terrible actor. It's like an elephant in the room type of situation, and she comes in one day and her lines have been completely cut and they're changing her hair. She's really upset about her hair, and her husband notices this, so her husband goes to Sam asking for help. Sam doesn't really want to help her, but the alternative is shooting this PSA that he definitely does not want to do. And after Sherry's husband goes, look, man, she's always been there for you. You need to finally be there for her. He reluctantly agrees to go meet with Cherry, who has locked herself in her trailer because of how bad her hair is. And when she finally comes out, you see her hair has been completely flattened out. She's crying and she's upset, and she can't figure out how she landed this role in this TV show. And now all of a sudden, there's something obviously wrong with what she's doing. So Sam goes, look, let's watch some of the tape. and it's painfully obvious that she can't act. Sam tells her, this isn't your fault. You weren't trained for this. You were a stunt woman. And yeah, maybe in 3 years with some practice, you could be a leading person, but not right now, not as is. So Sam, in an attempt to help out Cherry, calls the studio head along with the director of the show and says, look, I know it's a conflict of interest, but I need Cherry back. I can't do Glow without her. The problem is that network show has filmed a couple episodes. How do you explain Cherry not being on the show? And Sam goes, I don't know, rewrite the whole thing. Make it about a cop who needs to avenge the death of his partner or something. And they love that idea. So Cherry will now be coming back to Glow and rejoining the girls. And one of those girls is Melrose, who's having a little bit of an issue. She's insanely constipated. Jenny tells her that her grandmother has this ancient secret recipe to help with that. And she says, well, what do you want for it? And Jenny says, I want your jacket. She's like, no way. No way I'm giving you my jacket. And that jacket does play a big part in the episode. We'll get to that a little bit later. Because Melrose apparently is not the only girl having a slight problem. When all the girls are in the back lot having a conversation about this don't have sex PSA, one of them says, are teens really having that much sex? And Janine, who is a teenager, says, yeah, me and Billy have sex all the time. And that's when they realize Janine is literally the only one of them having sex. They're on a network television show, and none of them are getting laid. So their plan is to throw a party and finally get some. Melrose ends up inviting Russell's cameraman friend, and it looks like there's a pretty strong chance those two are going to hook up. But the problem is, when it comes to the party, she's still constipated, so she reluctantly gives Jenny the jacket, and Jenny pulls out her grandmother's ancient recipe, an enema. Now, it works, but the problem is when the cameraman friend shows up and he sees a girl in the jacket, he thinks it's Melanie. And when Jenny turns around, he's cool with her too. So Jenny and the cameraman start hooking up, and then Melanie ends up showing up and she sees this and she's like, damn it, that should have been me. And she's really bitter about it. But two people that aren't at this party are Ruth and Debbie. Now, Ruth has agreed to go to a film festival with Russell, and it's going to be their first date, and it's an Audrey Hepburn film festival, and Ruth loves Audrey Hepburn. But at the last minute, Debbie says, yeah, I think I need you to be here. I want to go over my voiceover work with this PSA. And instead of telling her, no, I have a date with Russell, Ruth, right in front of Russell, mind you, agrees to stay. Debbie kind of shoos Russell out of the room, saying, yeah, you can go on your date. Go ahead. We'll stay here. And Russell's just kind of like, what the hell? So he storms out, and Ruth chases after him saying, look, I'm sorry. Don't be mad at me. But Russell says, hey, I'm not mad. I'm more disappointed. But by the way, if it's any consolation, I think you're being taken advantage of. I think you have a friend up there who is using you, and you need to wake up to it. And Ruth goes, no, she's not taking advantage of me. We're just two very driven people. And for whatever reason, this sets Russell off, and he just storms out. So Ruth and Debbie work on this PSA through the night. It's pretty clear Ruth is kind of checked out anyway. And when they're about to leave, Ruth ends up mentioning to Debbie, yeah, I figured you didn't want to go home because you're getting divorced. And Debbie shoots her a look and says, I'm literally losing money every second that I'm here because I have to pay a babysitter. So I'm going to leave, and I'm really sorry you missed your date with Russell. So that is a clear admission that Debbie the whole time knew that forcing Ruth to be there was going to force her to miss her date with Russell. And it does not sit well with Ruth, understandably so. Now, episode 4 deals a lot with motherhood. This week in Glow, the main event is going to be Welfare Queen dropping her title to Liberty Bell. But before she can do that, she's heading up to Stanford to visit her son, who has gotten in on a full scholarship. It's Parents' Weekend, and she is so proud, and while she's touring the campus with him, she asks the guy to take a picture of her and her son, and the guy recognizes her and says, hey, wait, you're Welfare Queen, right? She sheepishly, says, yes, thank you for watching the show and all that, but the son takes offense to it because her son has no idea that she actually does this. Her son asks her if she's still working at Family Feud, and she says, no, I got a new job, and explains what it is, and he says, well, when are you doing it? And she says, actually, I have a match tonight. And Tammy goes, you can't come. I mean, it's Parents' Weekend. And he goes, yes, but I'll be spending it with my parent. So whether she likes it or not, her son's coming, and she's concerned because the character is offensive. It's very stereotypical, and she's kind of embarrassed about it because she wants her son to be proud of her. Now, her opponent for the week is also having a problem because Debbie's dropping her kid off and forgets to bring formula. She's been a little bit absent-minded. She's got a lot on her plate. She's getting divorced. Her career's not probably where she wanted it to be. And then the straw that brought the camel's back for her was when she's at home having a little downtime, and her husband's new secretary calls asking about the bed that she has. Because when Mark moved out, he wants to keep everything intact, and he wants to know exactly what kind of bed they had so that he can buy the exact one. And this just completely sets her off. She ends up trying to sell the bed, which she ends up doing for not much money, but then she wants every reminder of him out of the house. So she has a home sale where she sells everything. Doesn't care about the money, just wants it all gone. it leaves her with literally an empty house. Now, the two end up meeting up that night, and since they're friends, they console each other about their different mother issues, and Tammy tells her, hey, when my son was younger, I lost him in a store for about 3 hours, and guess what? He's in Stanford now, so don't sweat it, you're fine. But now they have to focus on the actual match. The match starts out with Welfare Queen coming out and sitting in some of Patio Town's furniture, but finally she gets egged into coming into the ring, and Liberty Bell breaks that furniture right over her back, and the match starts. Liberty Bell ends up winning her title back, but when Liberty Bell's addressing the crowd, she's thanking all the mothers and stuff, and she's imploring Welfare Queen to get a job, and she's having the entire audience chant, get a job. And this really upsets Tammy, who's doing all of this degrading work in front of her son. So instead of sticking with the act, Tammy just leaves, and it's a really weird scene in the audience, and they start kind of turning on Liberty Bell a little bit. And that's when Ruth steps in. She's still in her Zoya gear, and she grabs a little girl who's dressed just like Liberty Bell from the front row and tells the little girl, scream mommy. So Ruth is starting this whole new storyline that she is stealing Liberty Bell's daughter, Savannah Rose, and that starts a whole new feud, but it also gets the audience back with the actual show. At the end of the taping, Tammy's leaving and her son's still sitting there waiting, and her son can tell that his mom is pretty embarrassed and upset by what went down, and he consoles her about it, saying, hey, I didn't know you had that in you. I didn't know you were such a badass, and they go get food. Now, when Debbie goes home, Mark is waiting there, and he can't believe that she literally sold all the furniture in the house. He says, look, I didn't want the bed just to troll you. I wanted it because I want to make this as comfortable for Randy, our son, when he moves into my place. Have you lost your mind? Are you crazy? Like, that's all I think about is this kid. The kid that, by the way, you forgot at daycare today because you were so busy getting vengeance on me and our furniture. The episode ends with Debbie doing a little soul searching and also sleeping on the floor in front of Randy's crib because she doesn't have a bed. So we move on to episode 5, where as Sheila is leaving a taping, there are a ton of fans outside waiting for the wrestlers, and there's one really creepy guy who is literally dressed like Sheila, who really freaks her out. But this gives the girls an idea, because their contract sucks, they're not getting paid a lot, so they ask Bash for permission to set up like an autograph booth type situation after the shows so they can meet their fans, but more importantly, they can get paid. Bash agrees to it, but Bash has 2 issues. We'll start with the first issue. He can't find his butler, Florian. He bounced a check to Florian, he hasn't heard from him, and he's concerned at this point. He ends up finding a club that Florian went to, and it's clearly a gay club in the 80s. It's making Bash extremely uncomfortable. So he asks around and doesn't really hear much about where Florian went, so he goes to his mom's butler. Birdie's butler tells Bash that he stopped by a couple weeks ago, saying that the check bounced and he was going out of town. Bash has decided to stay at Birdie's place because Birdie's not there, and while him and the butler are discussing stuff, he says, hey, by the way, do you think that Birdie would sponsor Glow? The reason that Bash is going to need a sponsor is because when they meet with Glenn at the head of the studio, things aren't going as well as it seemed. The ratings aren't great. They thought it would be better after very little promotion that they did. They thought it was a big promotion. It wasn't, but promotion for Liberty Bell and Welfare Queen's match. And on top of it, Patio Town is now out. They didn't like the angle where the patio furniture broke over Welfare Queen, thus leading Bash to look for a new sponsor for the show. And by the way, this is a network that has shows like The Fishing Hour and a whole show dedicated to quilting, and they're complaining about ratings. So that just tells you how low-level Glow really is. But Glenn has set up a meeting with the head of the studio to discuss the rest of the season and how it's going to progress and the future of the show. And while none of them are really thrilled about this news, they realize that this meeting has a chance to save the show. But the head of the studio, a guy named Tom Grant, really wants to meet with Ruth because he's a fan of the show and he likes Ruth's character. So he sets up a dinner meeting with Ruth, and when Ruth gets there, she finds out the meeting has been moved to his hotel room. This kind of creeps out Ruth a little bit, but when she knocks on the door, Glenn opens it, and this gives her a little bit of relief. After some discussion, Tom looks at Glenn, kind of gives him a nod, and all of a sudden Glenn goes, yeah, I'm gonna actually go get some menus from the restaurant. And when he leaves, that's when things get creepy. Tom starts asking Ruth to put him in a headlock. He starts making moves on her, and then he informs her, yeah, Glenn's not coming back, by the way. We've got this whole place to ourselves. When he goes to the bathroom, Ruth is out of there. Unfortunately for Ruth, she had no idea that this would have a negative impact because the next day, as Debbie, Bash, and Sam get ready for their big meeting, they get a phone call saying it's not going to happen. The person on the other end of the phone informs them that they're being moved to 2 a.m. and in the process burying this show. So when Ruth finds out about this, she tells Debbie, hey, I think it's my fault, and explains everything that happened, and Debbie loses it. She yells at her and basically says, this is the way it works. How could you do this? You don't have to have sex with the guy, but just make him think that you want to have sex with the guy. I can't believe that you just jeopardized jeopardize this entire show, and in the process, you cost possibly 20 people their job. This is the one time you kept your legs closed, and it just fucked all of us. The episode ends with Ruth coming out and seeing all the girls selling their merch to their fans, and that's when it kind of dawns on her, did she make a mistake? But they're not going down without a fight, because in episode 6, Sam and Bash barge into the office of Tom Grant demanding answers on why they've been moved to 2 a.m. And Tom explains to him, we've got a new men's show, and the men's wrestling show is going to air at 10 a.m., your old slot, and you're going to air at 2 a.m. Bash is very stressed out, so when he gets back and addresses the girls, who have been training pretty hard now that Cherry's back, he explains to them that we've been replaced by guys because they do different things. They jump higher, the action is flat out better, and you guys need to pick your game up. So Cherry and Machu Picchu head to the drawing board, and they're watching some of the tapes of Machu Picchu's brothers. And while they're watching this, Machu Picchu's brothers are doing their finishing move, and Cherry says, yeah, write that down. And Machu Picchu says, we can't. That's their move. She says, why can't we do it? She's like, well, that's just not done. So Cherry says, look, I'm a wrestler, they're a wrestler, I'm doing the move. But Machu Picchu has bigger fish to fry because now she's in charge of teaching all these girls new wrestling moves to try and save their old time slot. But the problem is all of the girls are bickering. You've got Debbie being a real bitch to Ruth. You've got Beirut fighting with the two girls who stole her gimmick. And you've got Melanie fighting with Jenny about the jacket. And you've got the battle of the junk chains as Cherry is not really liking the attitude that Yolanda's giving her because Yolanda is flirting with her. And it's freaking Cherry out. So while they're all bickering, Machu Picchu's had enough, and she says, you all need to shut up. You know why the guys are better? Because they keep their emotions to themselves, and they don't sit here and argue about it. So shut up, learn the moves, and let's get our time slot back. So the girls go to work, they end up learning the new moves, and they end up looking like legit wrestlers. But before the taping goes down, Sam Sylvia has one of his movies headlining this like indie art festival that Justine has invited Ruth to. Apparently, they gave Sam all these tickets thinking he could fill this small movie theater, and obviously he can't. And Justine says, look, you're his friend. And Ruth kind of is taken aback and says, you think we're friends? And she says, well, he just likes you more than the others. So Sam shows up, and it's pretty funny. Ruth sits directly in the row behind him. And when Sam notices her, at first he goes, Jesus Christ, what are you doing here? And then he goes, why are you sitting right behind me? To which Ruth replies, well, I didn't know if you'd want to sit next to me. And he goes, like it's weird enough when you're behind me. So they watch one of Sam's movies, and at the end of it, they're having a discussion on the show, and Sam goes, it bothers me because I usually know why things I do don't work. Usually it's me not being able to get out of my own way. But with Glow, I can't figure out why we were moved to 2 a.m. And Ruth sheepishly tells him about what happened with her and Tom Grant, expecting Sam to blow up. And it's the exact opposite. Sam doesn't blow up at all. He's actually relieved that it wasn't him. It's some douchebag studio exec who's bitter because he didn't get in the pants of one of his wrestlers. He goes on to call Tom Grant a dick and a scumbag and a few other words, but it really takes the edge off of Ruth, who thought that the entire show would hate her for not having to sleep with the studio exec to, quote, save the show. Right before the taping the next day, Sam heads to the studio and takes a tire iron to Tom Grant's car. And as he's leaving, he sees Glenn. They make eye contact, and Glenn goes, he's made a lot of enemies. This could be anybody. And Sam just heads to the taping. Now, also before the taping, there's this situation with Debbie. She's at the car wash, and she sees her ex-husband holding their baby in the parking lot. So she exits the car to go talk to him, but then his secretary ends up walking up, and it makes for a very awkward interaction. Debbie plays it off really well, introduces herself to the new secretary/girlfriend, but she's clearly bothered about her home life situation. So when she gets to the taping of Glow, she kind of throws a diva fit, storms into Sam's office, demands that she has her own dressing room, and Sam goes, look, relax, calm down. You can get dressed in the office. I know going through divorce is tough, but just chill out. So Sam exits, and Debbie starts getting dressed, but she also finds Sam's blow. And hey, who's not going to bang some lines before going to work? And that's what Debbie ends up doing. The issue is when she gets into the ring, they're finishing the storyline of her and Zoya battling it out about Zoya stealing her child. And Debbie is going way too hard. The finale of the show is supposed to have Liberty Bell make Zoya tap out, and Debbie, being under the influence of cocaine, ends up snapping Ruth's ankle, which is exactly how episode 7 picks up. Nobody really knows what to do. The audience doesn't know if this is real or not, but the referee does tell Russell, the cameraman, hey, this is real. And Russell hops in, picks up Ruth, and ends up taking her out. And after a little bit of a squabble of what hospital to take her to, they end up picking one, as the episode is, I am assuming, canceled. We never really find out. So all of the girls head to the hospital, except Debbie. And they're all wondering, why is it taking so long for Ruth to get a bed? And if you've ever been to a hospital, you know this can be an issue at times. But then in come Russell and Sam. Sam kind of tells Russell to back off and escorts Ruth to a room that's opened up. And Russell kind of looks at all the girls and goes like, what? I like her. The guy's a dick. He asks the girls, hey, somebody let me know if she's all right. I'm going to go home, but somebody just give me a phone call. So after Russell leaves, everybody's kind of on edge of what happens, and Jenny's really the first one to pose the question of, was this on purpose or not? It's basically the elephant in the room. It's what we're all thinking. But Ruth is waiting to get an x-ray done, and while this is going on, all the girls are kind of trying to keep spirits high by doing skits and stuff to entertain her, and just generally passing the time of being in a hospital at midnight. Eventually, Ruth does end up getting an x-ray done, and while this is going on, Debbie finally shows up with Bash. All the girls are looking at Debbie cross-eyed because now it's all in their head that, hey, this did in fact happen on purpose. And Debbie is sensing a tension in the room, is kind of walking around with her head down. But this isn't just about Debbie, though, because Bash showed up with her, and he finds out that Ruth didn't have health insurance. But not only did Ruth not have health insurance, basically none of the girls other than Debbie have health insurance. And because it's a Bash Hour production, who's paying for this? Bash. And Bash is cursing himself for being so stupid to not think that when you have a wrestling show, people are going to get injured and you should have insurance. But while they're all waiting on the prognosis of Ruth, Sam tells the girls, look, go back to the hotel. Me and Bash are here. We'll take care of it. We'll let you know what happens. Right before the girls do go back to the hotel, though, Jenny does ask Sam, hey, do you think we'll get our time slot back? Because the show that they put on was incredible. And Sam goes, honestly, no, I don't. I think they're going to bury us at 2 a.m. and I think we're going to get canceled. So they all head back to the hotel, and then you've got Sam, Debbie, and Bash still at the hospital, still waiting to find out what's happening with Ruth. So after the girls do end up leaving, Sam ends up pointing Debbie to the direction of Ruth's room and says, yeah, I think you should go see her. As Debbie is awkwardly standing there, the doctor walks in and lets Ruth know that she has a clean fracture of the ankle, and basically, she's out for the season. This sparks the big blow-up that we've all been waiting for. They bring up whether Debbie did it on purpose. Debbie brings up how she had sex with Mark and in the process ruined her marriage. Ruth brings up that it was a marriage that was basically loveless. It gets pretty ugly and ends with Debbie storming out of the room, cursing out Ruth, and Ruth in tears. Debbie heads back to the motel and sees Sheila, who's Ruth's roommate, and says, hey, is there any chance you can bring Ruth some clothes because I don't want her leaving the hospital in a leotard? Sheila, knowing the whole backstory, tells her, yeah, I think it's probably best if you actually take the clothes to her, and Debbie reluctantly does that. So back at the hospital, Ruth has just gotten her cast on. Bash runs in with Sharpies ready to sign the cast like you would do in grade school, and then in walks Debbie, and it gets kind of awkward, but she's got the peace offering of the clothes. Bash signs her cast, Sam signs her cast, and then Sam gives the marker to Debbie, and Debbie asks, hey, is it okay if I sign your cast? And Ruth agrees. Then they start talking about the show, and Sam goes, look, we got 4 weeks left. They're going to cancel us anyway. We're just going to do what we want to do. Now, Ruth is just worried about losing her job and losing the character because it already happened with Junk Chain. And Sam told her, look, all the other girls, they're replaceable. You're not. I need you on this show. You're not getting off that easily. You're not going home. You're staying on the show. I don't care if you have a broken leg. I need you. So this gives Ruth a little bit of a relief, but she says, hey, can we hire Reggie back? If you remember, Reggie was the Viking who in the first episode got fired, and Sam goes, yeah, whatever, hire her back. So Reggie will be coming in to replace the action that you're losing with Zoya being out. The episode ends with Bash, Debbie, Sam. They're all wheeling Ruth out of the hospital with their head held high, and they're ready to just attack these last 4 episodes. Okay, so episode 8 is actually set up as if you're actually watching the television show Glow on KDTV, including all the commercials and everything. Now remember, they only have 4 episodes left, and Sam Sylvia is doing things his way now because they're going to cancel the show anyway. So they set up a storyline of Zoya calling her twin sister, Olga, to help her deal with Liberty Bell and Savannah Rose and the whole angle. But Olga is the good twin. So she's going to ride to America on her goat and end up helping Liberty Bell get her daughter back. We'll get to that a little bit later, but then you've got Britannica, who's trying to turn a mannequin into a real-life man. But Cherry's new character, Voodoo, shows up and tells her, I can help you turn that mannequin into an actual guy, but what I want in return is your brain. So Britannica backs up her brain onto a floppy disk, puts a string around her finger to remind herself and agrees to the deal. And of course, the mannequin comes to life and ends up being Bash. She completely forgets how to get her brain back, and they end up wrestling it out in the ring. The other thing this episode does differently is there's 2 music videos. The first one is Melrose doing a song called Makeover, where she makes over all the girls to get into a nightclub. And the other one is set up like a We Are the World, but it's an anti-kidnapping message. It's actually pretty funny. There's also a whole storyline where Sheila goes out with Olga's goat, comes back to the hotel, the goat gets a little too handsy, Sheila warns the goat. The next scene is Sheila eating the goat. But let's get back to Olga, who ends up showing up at Liberty Bell's house. Liberty Bell is taking a shower. It's set up completely like the movie Psycho. And when Liberty Bell opens up the shower curtain, there's Olga, but she thinks it's Zoya. And Olga goes, no, I'm the good twin. I'm going to help you. And the way you're able to differentiate the two is because Olga's foot is all messed up. And Liberty Bell tells her, hey, if you help me get Savannah Rose back, I'll get a surgery to fix your foot. I'll pay for it. So Beirut and Fortune Cookie are guarding the entrance to get Savannah Rose. Fortune Cookie goes off to take a bathroom break, and Beirut ends up daydreaming about what she wanted to do before she became a terrorist, which is a ballroom dancer. And while she's daydreaming, in swoops Liberty Bell, who hears audio of Savannah Rose screaming mommy, but when she arrives, it's actually the Viking holding a recording of Savannah Rose screaming mommy, and she says she's locked away in a safe with some holes, and I'll give you the combination, but you have to defeat me in the ring. And of course, she ends up getting her daughter back. When she gets her daughter back, she makes good on the bet, and Olga's going to get her surgery. But the issue is, while Olga's going under the knife, Zoya is actually the doctor, along with Justine, who's playing the nurse. And the episode ends with the evil sister getting revenge on the good sister for helping out her mortal enemy. But how the actual episode ends is 2 people watching this episode of Glow saying, that looks just like Justine. I'm telling you, that's Justine. And it's Justine's mom all the way in Seattle. So episode 9 starts out with Justine's mom showing up at Sam Sylvia's house, demanding that Justine come back with her. And this is a night after they had a nice family dinner. They invited Ruth over. Ruth actually ended up sleeping on the couch. So when Justine's mom shows up, there's Ruth in an awkward situation. Ruth tells Sam, hey, I'm just going to head out. But Sam goes, no, I can't have you leave because I'm going to say something stupid. She's going to end up leaving and I can't lose her. I don't want to lose her. Justine obviously does not want to go with her mom. There's a reason she ran away, but she was lying to her mom the entire time, telling her she was doing like some weird kind of school, and the mom had no idea that she'd actually run off to go find her dad. They get into a huge cursing match, and the mom's actually a lot like Sam with the zero fucks given type attitude. Sam comes up with the idea of telling her, hey, she can't leave now. She's got the prom tonight, and it's a huge deal for her. Now, Justine was planning on going to the prom with Billy, but they were going to go dressed normally. In a kind of a fuck the establishment situation. Ruth ended up bringing her over 2 dresses just in case, and they end up coming in handy because Justine walks out of the bedroom and saying, yeah, no, this is huge deal to me. Which dress should I wear? So she's going to be able to stay for at least one more night. So they're at the prom, and Billy is miserable. He's like, I'd rather shoot myself than actually dance to this music. And Justine says, look, if you ever want to see me again, you're going to dance because if I walk out of here, I can't come back. Billy talks about running away and going on tour with his band because they're supposed to go to New York, and Justine really likes that idea, but the problem is Sam gets wind of it and ends up telling Justine's mom. And when Sam rats her out to her own mom, Justine is pissed off. She calls him Benedict Arnold, but Sam's like, look, I can't not tell your mom where you're going. Later on in the dance, Sam and Ruth end up dancing together, and Sam kind of goes in for a kiss, and Ruth backs up and walks out. It's an awkward situation, and Ruth ends up on Russell's steps. They finally hook up. It's a beautiful thing, but she left the arms of Sam Sylvia and ran into the arms of another man. The rest of the girls are trying to figure out, however, what they're going to do post-Glow. They're all expecting the show to get canceled, but even if it doesn't, they're going to need jobs in between seasons. So Jenny has gotten a job at the Limited, and she's handing out applications to girls that are interested in working there. Welfare Queen is actually doing really well with her Welfare Queen action figure, and Sheila comes over and says, hey, how many of these things have you sold? And she's like, 50, which would equate to $500. She's like, yeah, I'm planning on using the money for acting classes, and then I'm going to pitch KDTV like an Oprah-type show. And she was like, well, I want to do acting classes. And Welfare Queen says, look, you can do acting classes with me. Just help me make these things. While the girls are discussing their future, in comes kind of a stalker for Britannica, and they call him Cupcake because he makes cupcakes and baked goods for Britannica, and Britannica's like, that's really appreciate it. I'll see you at the taping. We can be friends and stuff. And, of course, he's in love with her and asks her hand in marriage. And she's like, no, we can still be friends and stuff. And it's clear she doesn't want to blow off a fan, but it also is clear that it kind of weirds her out. Later that day, Britannica does end up going to Jenny and saying, hey, I'll take an application. But when she's filling it out, she says, what's this right here? What's this SS? They're like, it's a social security number. And she's like, yeah, I don't have one of those. The girls call her out for being an illegal. And Jenny goes, look, just go to the consulate, get your visa. My uncle did it. He didn't even speak English. And you'll be fine. Well, she follows that plan, and it backfires because they gave her 30 days to get out of the country. And that's when the light bulb clicks for Machu Picchu. That's how we're going to end this show. The season finale is going to be Britannica marrying Cupcake, because in real life, if you marry Cupcake, it's a green card marriage. You're able to stay in the country. And finally in this episode, you have Bash and Debbie, who have headed to a television conference to try to pitch Glow to other networks. The problem is they didn't really plan this out too well. They have a booth, but they don't really have any gimmicks. They don't have any costumes. They don't have any booze or anything to pitch to people. So Bash comes up with the idea of literally walking around the conference and just loudly saying how in demand the show Glow is. And this works. They get back to the bar, and Bash's phone is blowing up with people who want to come to the next taping and are interested in buying the show. But then his phone rings with bad news. It's from a hospital in San Francisco telling him that his butler, Florian, has passed away. The person on the line tells him basically that technically it was from pneumonia, but we all know really it was from AIDS. And Bash does not handle this well. He tells the person at the hospital that Florian's mother's name Irene, she lives in Sacramento, and call her, and hangs up, but he's clearly disturbed by it. And finally, we move on to the season finale. The girls are promoting the wedding on a local radio show. But while the girls are doing that, Sam is saying goodbye to Justine, who's being forced to go back to Sacramento with her mom. Sam tells her, I'm going to miss you. Justine says, I'm going to miss you. Can I come visit? All that good stuff. It's an emotional scene, but Sam now needs to get back to work because he has a season finale to attend to. So the girls are pitching ideas for the season finale for the show. And one of the pitches they get is Ruth actually wrestling. The problem is, with a broken leg, the wrestling is terrible, and there's no real way to fit her in. So to appease her, Sam goes, look, I'll let you be co-director. You're going to do it anyway. So you might as well sit in the booth. But while Debbie and Sam are watching these pitches, there's a producer missing, and that's Bash, who's getting his entire house cleaned out because Florian died of AIDS. It's the 80s. Everybody was scared. And as I said a few minutes ago, he's just having a really tough time dealing with the loss of his butler/best friend. Now, to kill some time, Sam ends up going to a strip club owned by a dad that he met at the dance who said, hey, stop by, drop my name, I'll give you free wings. And while Sam's at the strip club, he tells the guy, yeah, I do the show Glow, you should stop by sometime, it's fun. And the owner of the strip club says, yeah, I'll stop by for the season finale. Because one of his dancers is the girl who plays Junk Chain. And one of the people there to see Junk Chain is the girl who plays Beirut. And they are smitten. Now it's finally time for the taping. And all the girls are getting ready, and Ruth shows up a little bit late. She's the excuses of the crutches, but Debbie says, look, we all know you're late because you're banging Russell. And by the way, you look happy. And Ruth goes, I am. And she's kind of like a giddy little schoolgirl. And it's the first time you kind of see these guys get back to being friends. But in the middle of the girls getting ready and dressed, in come Machu Picchu's brothers. And they are pissed because Cherry has been stealing their moves on national television. Debbie, being a quick-witted producer, goes, hey, let's figure this out. I'm sure we can work something out and come to an arrangement. And right before the taping goes down, she comes into the production studio and says, hey, by the way, there's going to be a change. I said it was cool, so when it happens, just don't even worry about it. Now, the episode kicks off with the wedding. And when the priest asks, does anybody object to this marriage, all of a sudden, Bash says, yeah, I do, and pulls Britannica to the side and says, look, don't marry some stranger. I actually know you. I've been sleeping on your floor, and by the way, I'm in love with you, so marry me. You don't really know if he's actually in love with her or if he's trying to give off like a non-gay vibe because his best friend just died of AIDS, but either way, she's going to end up getting her green card, so it kind of ends up working out for both parties. Who it doesn't end up working out for is Cupcake, who is pissed off, flips everybody off, and I don't even blame him because Bash Howard just stole his girl. Britannica ends up getting up on the top rope and throwing the bouquet, and then it gets announced whoever ends up with the bouquet wins the Glow crown for the season. So all the girls are now in a battle royale, and then it gets down to 3. You've got Liberty Bell, Machu Picchu, and Sheila. But all of a sudden, here come Machu Picchu's brothers. Kurt Jackson and Chico Guapo are pissed off at these girls for stealing their moves, and they're coming to take the crown. They do a really good job of selling these girls, and they get eliminated, but they get their airtime, so they're cool with it. As Ruth sits up in the booth, she says, I want a picture of Carmen when she wins the crown, and that's when Sam says, she's not winning the crown. Grab your stuff. Sam takes her out of the production studio, and there's a zip line there waiting for her. And he says, you're going to zip line in. They know it's coming. You're going to boot them in the face, and you're going to end up winning the crown. And it seems like Ruth has just never been happier. So that's what she does. She zips lines in, takes the crown. The entire crowd is booing her, and she's just soaking in the moment in front of all these studio execs, by the way. So at the end of the episode, all of those studio execs are talking to Bash and Sam about buying the show, but the problem is there's also Glenn involved. And when all the studio execs walk out and they don't look happy, Glenn ends up informing the girls, we actually own your character, so you can't just sell this show to another studio. But hey, keep doing the local thing because, you know, it's a good product, but yeah, we're not interested and you can't go to another TV market. Obviously, the girls are very upset, but there's one person that's thrilled, and that's the strip club owner. He loves the show, and he tells them, I have a club in Las Vegas that needs a headliner. This place has this magician, and this place has Siegfried and Roy, and we need something. Las Vegas is where the money's at, so head to Vegas, and that's how the season ends, with all the girls getting in a bus and heading to Vegas to be the headliners of this new club. Now, here's the part where I beg you guys to like and subscribe the channel. Really subscribe. I always say, I don't know if liking does a damn thing, but like, hit the subscribe button. You can comment if you want. If you didn't like this video, just walk away. You don't need to hit the thumbs down. Just keep on moving. But I, for one, am looking forward to Season 3 of Glow.